The Manhattan sky hung heavy with dark clouds promising another summer downpour. Light raindrops tapped against the glass windows of a small corner bakery on 7th Avenue. Inside, the warm scent of vanilla and cinnamon created a stark contrast to the gloomy weather. Maya Collins tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear as she settled at a corner table, placing her tablet and sketchbook on the wooden surface. She had no intention of buying anything, just a place to wait out the rain and finish some client designs due tomorrow. Rain fell harder now, drumming against the windows. Maya's attention drifted from her work to the sound, watching people scurry past with newspapers over their heads and colorful umbrellas blooming like sudden flowers along the sidewalk. This was the New York she loved, chaotic, unpredictable, and somehow still beautiful in its messiness. Her gaze shifted to movement near the counter, where a little girl in a pink dress with white ruffled sleeves stood alone. Golden curls bounced in two small pigtails as she turned, frantically scanning the bakery with wide, frightened eyes. The child couldn't have been older than 5, lips trembling as tears gathered. Maya's chest tightened. The bakery was busy with the afternoon crowd, yet somehow no one had noticed this little girl, standing alone, clearly lost. Setting her tablet aside, Maya stood and made her way across the room, crouching down beside the child. "My daddy was just here. He said to wait, but he's not coming back, just like Mommy." Those words hit Maya like a physical blow. Memories of her own childhood surfaced, the same fear, the same tears. She reached out carefully, making sure not to startle the girl. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Her voice was gentle, a soft anchor in the child's storm of emotions. "Emma." The girl's voice was barely audible above the bakery bustle. "Well, Emma," Maya smiled softly, "would you like to sit with me until your daddy comes back? We can look out the window together and make up stories about people walking by. Maybe draw some pictures." Emma hesitated, eyeing Maya with a mixture of caution and desperate hope that broke Maya's heart. After a moment, the little girl nodded, her small hands slipping tentatively into Maya's. Back at the table, Maya tore a sheet from her sketchbook and grabbed a colored pencil. Within minutes, she had transformed Emma's tears into giggles, with quick doodles of silly characters: a man with an umbrella being carried away by the wind, a dog wearing rain boots splashing in puddles. Emma leaned forward, utterly captivated, as Maya crafted a spontaneous story about each character. They were in the middle of creating a purple elephant who was afraid of getting wet when the bakery door swung open with force. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped inside, droplets of rain sliding off his broad shoulders. His dark hair was slightly damp, his sharp jawline tense with worry that immediately gave way to relief when his eyes locked on Emma. Daddy Emma's face lit up as she scrambled from her chair. The man rushed forward, his expensive shoes squeaking slightly against the polished floor. "Emma, I turned around for 2 seconds and you were gone." His voice carried no anger, only the residual panic of a parent who had momentarily lost sight of their child. Maya stood brushing crumbs from her simple sundress, suddenly aware of the contrast between her casual attire and his obviously custom-made suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. "Thank you." His dark eyes finally acknowledged Maya's presence with a curt nod, professional, distant, yet with a flash of genuine gratitude. She was just scared. Maya's response was simple, her gaze moving between father and daughter, noting their matching deep brown eyes. The man scooped Emma into his arms in one fluid motion. "She's fine now." Another nod. This one dismissive, and they were gone, disappearing into the rain as quickly as they had entered her life. Maya returned to her tablet, but concentration proved impossible. That little girl's words echoed in her mind. "He's not coming back, just like Mommy." The pain in those words felt too familiar, tugging at memories Maya usually kept carefully tucked away. Rain continued to fall over New York City, washing the streets clean, while Maya finished her coffee and tried to focus on work again, unaware that the brief encounter would soon change everything. 3 days later, Maya's cramped Brooklyn apartment buzzed with the sounds of her favorite playlist as she worked late into the evening. Her living room doubled as her workspace, a drafting table positioned near the window to catch natural light walls adorned with colorful sketches and inspiration boards. It wasn't much, but it was hers, earned through years of hard work after graduating from Parsons. The unexpected knock disrupted her flow. Maya frowned, checking the time, nearly 9 o'clock. Too late for package deliveries, too early for her noisy neighbors' typical midnight lockouts. The man standing in her hallway was the last person she expected to see. Daniel Reed now, she recognized him not just as Emma's father, but as the CEO of Reed Innovations, his face occasionally appearing in business magazines and tech websites. He seemed strangely out of place in her building's dimly lit hallway, with its peeling paint and flickering lights. I hope you don't mind the intrusion. His voice was deep controlled, lacking the frantic energy from their first meeting. Emma hasn't stopped asking for you. I couldn't find any contact information, but the bakery staff mentioned your business card. He held up her simple cream-colored card between two fingers, the one she'd left on the counter when paying for her coffee. Maya stood frozen in her doorway, struggling to process his presence. How did you find my apartment? The question slipped out before she could temper it with politeness. A slight grimace crossed his features, either embarrassment or annoyance, she couldn't tell. The staff mentioned you lived in this building. Finding your exact apartment required some inquiries. May I come in? It's about Emma. Against her better judgment, Maya stepped aside. Her apartment suddenly felt impossibly small, with him in it, his height and presence somehow diminishing her carefully curated space. She gestured toward her small dining table, really just a vintage desk repurposed with mismatched chairs, while quickly gathering scattered sketches and coffee mugs. Daniel remained standing, hands clasped before him, like a man preparing to make a business pitch. I'll make it quick. It's about Emma's birthday next month. She hasn't celebrated properly since her mother died last year. I've tried everything, party planners, child therapists, even actors. Maya's eyebrows rose at the last word. Actors, she refuses to celebrate unless her mother is there. He paused, discomfort evident in his rigid posture. She's convinced herself that you're her mom. The words hung in the air between them. Maya stood perfectly still, trying to process what he was implying. What? She told me. His words came faster now, as if hurrying through an unpleasant task. That you're the one who makes her feel safe. That you remind her of Elizabeth, my late wife. The resemblance is, there's a similarity in your appearance. Maya shook her head, crossing her arms protectively across her chest. Mr. Reed, Daniel, please. Daniel, then. I'm sorry about your wife and about Emma's pain. Truly, but I don't see how this involves me. He took a deep breath, straightening his already perfect posture. I need you to pretend to be my wife for 3 months, for Emma, leading up to her birthday. The request was so outlandish that Maya almost laughed, certain he was joking. But his expression remained deadly serious, his eyes holding a desperate intensity that stopped her short. You want me, a complete stranger, to pretend to be your dead wife for your 5-year-old daughter? The words sounded even more absurd spoken aloud. Yes, the simplicity of his answer was startling. Maya began pacing her small living room, mind racing. This is insane. You don't know. I don't know you. This is not how people solve problems. Daniel remained unmoved by her outburst. Emma hasn't slept through the night in months. That day at the bakery after meeting you, she slept without nightmares for the first time since the accident. The simple statement hit Maya with unexpected force. She remembered her own childhood nightmares after losing her mother, how sleep became a battlefield rather than a refuge. Daniel continued, his voice softer now. I'm not asking you to replace Elizabeth, just to help Emma through this difficult time. 3 months, September through November. You'd stay at our home initially as Emma's caretaker, then gradually transition into a maternal role. After her birthday celebration in November, we create a reason for your departure. Emma gets closure, experiences a happy birthday, and can begin healing properly. Maya's thoughts whirled like autumn leaves caught in a gust. If I even considered this, which I'm not saying I am about my work, my life, I can't just disappear for 3 months. You'd have complete access to a home office, all the equipment you need. As for compensation, Daniel named a figure that made Maya's eyes widen, enough to fund her independent design studio for years, not just months. Why me? There must be thousands of blonde women in New York who need money. Something shifted in Daniel's expression, a momentary softening. Because my daughter, who hasn't connected with anyone since her mother died, somehow connected with you in 20 minutes over cookies and drawings. Because for reasons I don't understand, Emma trusts you. And right now, her trust is worth everything to me. Maya turned away, looking out her small window at the Brooklyn street below. The practical side of her brain cataloged all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Ethical issues, emotional complications, professional disruptions. Yet another part remembered Emma's small hand in hers, those sad eyes brightening as they drew together. I need time to think about this. It's not a simple request. Daniel nodded, retrieving a business card from his pocket and placing it on her table. Take all the time you need, well until Friday. He moved toward the door, then paused. There's one more thing you should know. Emma isn't the only reason for my request. Maya raised an eyebrow, waiting. Reed Innovations is finalizing a partnership with Tanaka Technologies. It's a $100 million deal that would secure my company's future and protect hundreds of jobs. Mr. Tanaka is traditional, family-oriented. He's expressed concerns about dealing with a single father who's too busy for family life. So this is about business too. The warmth that had begun to build in Maya's chest cooled instantly. Daniel met her eyes directly. I won't deny that it would help, but this is primarily about Emma. The business angle is secondary, but I believe in transparency. With that, he left the door, closing softly behind him. Maya sank onto her sofa, staring at the business card on her table. The simple white rectangle seemed to pulse with impossible choices and unexpected crossroads. That night, Maya barely slept. Her dreams were filled with a little girl's tears and a man's desperate eyes. By morning, she had convinced herself to refuse. By afternoon, she was researching Daniel Reed and his company. By evening, she was looking at photographs of the Reed family online, Daniel, Emma, and Elizabeth, whose blonde hair and gentle smile did bear a strange resemblance to Maya's own. 2 days later, Maya found herself in a coffee shop several blocks from her apartment, waiting. The door opened and Emma entered, holding Daniel's hand, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Maya. The child's face transformed with pure joy, tugging her father forward eagerly. Maya's heart twisted. No one had ever been that happy to see her, not in a very long time. The next hour passed in a blur of drawings and hot chocolate, Emma chattering more freely than Daniel had seen in months. When Emma went to the bathroom accompanied by the cafe manager, whom Daniel clearly knew, he turned to Maya with question in his eyes. All right, Maya's voice was steady, her decision made. 3 months, that's it. And we need ground rules. No one, no neighbors, no assistants, no photographers, gets to think it's real. I start as Emma's caretaker, then we gradually adjust the narrative. After her birthday in November, we create a kind reason for my departure. Then we go back to being strangers. Understood. Daniel nodded, relief washing over his features. Understood. Neither of them realized that 3 months could change everything. The wrought iron gates of the Reed estate opened slowly as Maya's taxi pulled into the circular driveway. The residence before her looked more like a boutique hotel than a home, a modern mansion of clean lines and vast windows reflecting the September sunlight. For all its architectural beauty, there was something distinctly cold about it, as if designed for magazine features rather than family memories. Maya stepped out with her weekend bag, smoothing her simple dress, suddenly conscious of how out of place she must look. Before she could reach for her larger suitcase, a uniformed staff member appeared, efficiently taking her luggage. Another opened the imposing front door, revealing a soaring entryway of marble and glass. The contrast with her Brooklyn apartment was jarring. Their every corner held personal touches, vintage posters, mismatched furniture, chosen for character rather than coordination, shelves overflowing with art books and supplies. Here, everything was pristine, curated, and oddly impersonal, despite the obvious luxury. Emma appeared at the top of the sweeping staircase, her face lighting up at the sight of Maya. She bounded down the steps in her little pink dress, pigtails bouncing, and threw herself into Maya's arms. Maya crouched, hugging her tightly, the child's uninhibited affection washing away some of her misgivings. Daniel followed behind Emma, his expression guarded yet relieved. She's been counting down the hours. His voice was low, meant only for Maya, as the staff discreetly disappeared with her luggage. I can tell. Maya smiled, brushing Emma's curls back from her forehead. The gesture came naturally, surprising her with its ease. Inside the house was even more impressive, high ceilings, designer furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than Maya's college education. Yet despite the grandeur, there was a palpable emptiness, as if the spaces were too large, too perfect, to be truly lived in. This way, Daniel led them past a curious housekeeper toward what he called the family wing. I've told the staff you're Emma's new caretaker for now. They've been briefed that we'll be adjusting her routine over the coming months. Briefed, Maya echoed with a raised eyebrow. Like I'm part of a military operation, Daniel allowed the ghost of a smile. In a way, a sharp-eyed woman in a tailored suit appeared around the corner, tablet in hand. Sarah Phillips, Daniel's executive assistant. She gave Maya a coolly appraising look before offering a professional handshake. Ms. Collins, we've prepared the blue suite for you. Would you like to see it now or have a tour of the house first? The blue suite. It turned out was larger than Maya's entire apartment. A beautiful bedroom connected to a private sitting area and bathroom, decorated in soothing shades of navy and cream. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens, and a small desk had been positioned perfectly for morning light. Will this be suitable? Daniel asked, standing at the doorway, while Emma explored the room, opening drawers and bouncing experimentally on the window seat. It's... Maya struggled to find words that wouldn't betray how overwhelming she found the space. It's lovely. Thank you. Sarah cleared her throat delicately. Dinner is at 7, Ms. Collins. Emma usually eats earlier at 5:30. Mr. Reed has meetings until 6:30 most evenings. The chef would like to know if you have any dietary restrictions. The formality of it all, chef inquiries and dinner schedules, made the reality of what Maya had agreed to suddenly uncomfortably clear. No restrictions. Thank you. Sarah nodded and departed with efficient clicks of her heels against the hardwood floor. Daniel lingered, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. We should discuss our backstory tonight after Emma's asleep. His voice was low, professional, as if discussing a business proposal rather than a fabricated romance. Maya nodded, watching as Emma examined the bathroom with delighted exclamations over the giant bathtub and fancy soap that looks like flowers. For a moment, an unexpected question pressed against Maya's lips. What was she like, Elizabeth? But she swallowed it back. There would be time for those questions later, when little ears weren't so attentive. After Daniel left for his meetings, Maya spent the afternoon helping Emma unpack her small suitcase of essentials, favorite toys, sketch pads, and the stuffed elephant that apparently went everywhere with her. The child's room was beautiful but oddly impersonal, expertly decorated in pink and white, looking more like a furniture showroom than a little girl's sanctuary. Few personal touches were visible beyond a framed photo of Emma with her parents on the bedside table. At precisely 5:30, a staff member appeared to escort them to the kitchen for Emma's dinner. Maya declined the offer to have them eat in the formal dining room, preferring the relative warmth of the chef's domain. Emma seemed surprised but pleased by this choice, perking up considerably as Maya asked the initially startled but ultimately accommodating chef if they could help prepare a simple meal together. Soon Emma was giggling as she carefully arranged cucumber slices into smiley faces on her sandwich under Maya's guidance. The kitchen staff exchanged glances Maya couldn't quite interpret, surprise perhaps, or concern about this deviation from established routine. After tucking Emma in with a story, Maya using different voices for each character in a way that made Emma dissolve into delighted laughter, she found her way to Daniel's study. The room matched him perfectly, elegant, meticulously organized with wall-to-wall bookshelves and a massive desk overlooking the back gardens, now silver-tinted in moonlight. Daniel looked up from his laptop, removing reading glasses Maya hadn't seen him wear before. The small humanizing detail made him momentarily less intimidating. Is she asleep? Maya nodded, settling into a leather armchair across from him. She loves that book about the elephant who's afraid of thunderstorms. Have you read it to her? Something like discomfort crossed Daniel's features. I'm not very good with the voices. She prefers when Marta reads to her. The housekeeper reads her bedtime stories. Maya couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. Daniel closed his laptop, his expression carefully neutral. My schedule is unpredictable. I'm often on calls with international partners until late. Maya bit back a comment about priorities. Instead, she redirected. You mentioned discussing our backstory. For the next hour, they constructed a fabricated history of their relationship, how they supposedly met at a charity gala 2 years before his wife's death, when they reconnected 6 months ago at an art exhibition, why she'd been out of Emma's life until now, working abroad on various design projects. The level of detail Daniel insisted upon was almost absurd, from favorite restaurants to inside jokes. Favorite memory together, Daniel asked, reading from a list on his tablet. Maya leaned her chin on her hand, unable to resist a small jab. Maybe the time you hired me to lie to everyone you know. To her surprise, Daniel actually laughed, a brief, rich sound that transformed his usually stern features. It occurred to Maya that she had never seen him truly smile before. The effect was rather disarming. Favorite vacation spot, he continued, seemingly more relaxed now. I've always wanted to see the northern lights in Iceland. Maya answered honestly before remembering this was supposed to be about their fictional relationship. I mean, no, that works, Daniel made a note. Elizabeth and I took Emma to Italy last year, but we talked about Iceland for our next trip. He paused, a shadow crossing his face. Before the accident. Maya felt a pang of sympathy. How did it happen? The question slipped out before she could stop herself. Daniel's expression closed like a door slamming shut. Car accident, 14 months ago. His tone made it clear the subject was closed. They continued through the list, crafting a plausible relationship history that they could reference consistently. By the time they finished, it was nearly midnight, and Maya was exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. I should get some rest. She stood stretching subtly. Daniel nodded, his attention already returning to his laptop. One more thing. He spoke without looking up. Emma has nightmares, usually around 2 a.m. The night nurse checks on her, but if you hear her, would you mind? The request surprised Maya, of course. Her bedroom was as beautiful as she remembered, now turned down with expensive linens that felt like clouds against her skin. Yet despite the luxury, Maya found sleep elusive. She kept thinking of the little girl down the hall who'd lost her mother, the father drowning in work rather than grief, and the strange, elaborate deception she'd agreed to participate in. Around 2:30, she heard a small, heartbreaking cry from down the hall. Maya was moving before she'd fully processed the sound, padding barefoot across the plush carpet. She found Emma sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, stuffed elephant clutched to her chest. Mommy was falling again. Her small voice trembled in the darkness. I couldn't catch her, Maya's heart constricted. She sat on the edge of the bed, opening her arms. Emma crawled into her embrace without hesitation, her little body shaking with sobs. It's okay, sweetheart. It was just a bad dream. You're safe now. Emma's tears gradually subsided as Maya rocked her, gently humming a lullaby her own mother had once sung. When the child's breathing finally evened into sleep, Maya carefully tucked her back under the covers, smoothing her curls away from her forehead. As she turned to leave, she noticed a figure in the doorway, Daniel watching silently, his expression unreadable in the dim glow of the nightlight. Their eyes met briefly before he disappeared back down the hallway without a word. The next morning, Emma was cheerful at breakfast, seemingly having forgotten her nighttime distress. Maya found herself naturally falling into a routine, helping Emma dress, accompanying her to the small private park nearby, spending the afternoon drawing together while Daniel attended meetings. Over the following days, Maya discovered that despite the mansion's grandeur, Emma's life was oddly restricted. She had few toys that showed signs of regular use, her schedule was rigidly structured, and she rarely mentioned friends her own age. When Maya inquired about playdates, Emma looked confused. I don't go to school like other kids. A tutor comes here. Daddy says it's safer. Maya frowned, making a mental note to discuss this with Daniel. Children needed peers interaction, normal childhood experiences, especially after trauma. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Maya found Daniel in his study as usual. She knocked on the open door, determined to address her concerns. He glanced up, looking tired but less guarded than previous evenings. How was today? Good, mostly. Maya entered, taking the same chair as before. But I wanted to ask, why doesn't Emma attend regular school or have play dates? Daniel's expression tightened. After Elizabeth died, the media attention was intrusive. Photographers outside our home, reporters approaching Emma. I decided home education was safer. Maya understood his protective instinct but couldn't help pushing further. But now, surely things have calmed down. She needs friends her own age, normal childhood experiences. A shadow of something guilt perhaps crossed Daniel's features. The tutors say she's not ready socially. She was making progress before, but after losing her mother, she withdrew completely. Maya leaned forward. Mr. Reed, Daniel, children are resilient, but they need help processing grief. Isolation isn't the answer. Emma needs structure, but also freedom to just be a child, to make messes, have adventures, form friendships. Daniel's jaw tightened, defenses rising visibly. I appreciate your concern, Ms. Collins, but I've consulted with multiple child psychologists about Emma's care. The formal address stung, reminding Maya of her temporary artificial position in their lives. Have any of these experts suggested that keeping Emma in a beautiful bubble might not be the best approach? Their conversation was interrupted by Sarah appearing at the door, tablet in hand as always. "Mr. Reed, sorry to disturb you, but Mr. Tanaka's office called. They'd like to move the dinner to next week instead of month's end. His wife will be accompanying him." Daniel's expression shifted instantly from irritated father to focused CEO. "Fine, make the arrangements." He turned back to Maya as Sarah disappeared. "Actually, this changes things. We need to accelerate our timeline." Maya crossed her arms, "Meaning the Tanakas are key to the partnership I mentioned. They'll be here for dinner next Friday." Daniel's tone was all business now. "We need to present as a family unit sooner than planned. You want me to pretend to be your wife already? For your business dinner?" Maya's voice rose slightly before she caught herself conscious of sleeping ears down the hall. Daniel ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, the first sign of genuine distress she'd seen from him. "It's not ideal, but yes, Mr. Tanaka specifically mentioned wanting to meet my whole family. His traditionalist views are well known." Maya stood pacing the study. "This wasn't the agreement. I'm supposed to be Emma's caretaker right now, gradually transitioning to a maternal role, not jumping straight into playing your wife for business associates. I understand it's an adjustment to the timeline." Daniel began, his tone maddeningly reasonable. "No, you don't understand." Maya stopped pacing to face him directly. "This isn't just about timelines, it's about Emma. She's just starting to trust me. If we suddenly announce I'm her new mother, how do you think she'll react? Children need honesty, consistency. This could confuse her terribly." Daniel stood as well, his height advantage more apparent now that they faced each other. "Then what do you suggest the Tanakas will be here in 9 days? Maya took a deep breath, forcing herself to think practically rather than emotionally. "We don't lie to Emma. We continue exactly as we are with her. I'm her caretaker, her friend. But for one evening, I'll play the part of your wife for the Tanakas. Emma doesn't need to understand the adult dynamics." Daniel considered this, his expression calculating. "That could work. We'll need to prepare Emma, though. Explain why you'll be acting differently for the evening." "No," Maya's response was firm. "We don't teach her to lie or pretend. We simply tell her we're having special guests and everyone needs to be on their best behavior. She doesn't need to know the complexities." Their gazes locked in silent negotiation. Finally, Daniel nodded, conceding the point. "All right, but we'll need to prepare in other ways. The Tanakas will expect a certain familiarity between us." The implication hung in the air, creating a sudden awareness of the space between them, professional until now, but needing to transform into something that could pass for intimate. "We'll figure it out." Maya turned toward the door, needing space from the intensity of the moment. "But I have one condition." Daniel raised an eyebrow, waiting. "You start spending real time with Emma, not just brief appearances between meetings. She needs her father, not just a caretaker who happens to be pretending to be her mother." Something flashed in Daniel's eyes. Defensiveness, guilt, or perhaps a combination of both. "I spend time with her." When Maya challenged, "When exactly?" "Because in the week I've been here, you've had breakfast with her exactly twice, and both times you were on your phone. You've missed dinner every night. You haven't read her a single bedtime story. You don't understand the pressures I'm under." His voice had a dangerous edge now. "This Tanaka deal isn't just about profit. It's about the survival of my company. Hundreds of jobs. Elizabeth's legacy." Maya softened slightly, recognizing the grief beneath his anger. "I understand pressure, Daniel, but Emma's childhood won't wait for your business deals to conclude. She needs you now, not when it's convenient." Daniel turned away, looking out the window into the darkness beyond. His shoulders were rigid with tension. "What exactly are you proposing? 3 hours a day, uninterrupted time with Emma. No phones, no Sarah, no business emergencies unless the building is literally on fire. Starting tomorrow, that's impossible. I have meetings, reschedule them." Maya cut him off. "If you want me to play happy family for your business at dinner, this is non-negotiable." Their eyes met again, the challenge clear. After a long moment, Daniel gave a curt nod. 3 hours. I'll have Sarah rearrange my schedule." Maya left the study feeling oddly victorious yet unsettled. She'd just gone toe-to-toe with one of New York's most powerful CEOs and held her ground. Yet the complexity of what she'd agreed to, not just for the business dinner, but the entire charade, weighed heavily. The following morning brought unexpected changes. When Maya and Emma came down for breakfast, they found Daniel already at the table, not rushing out with coffee in hand, not taking calls on his cell phone, but actually sitting down with a newspaper and what appeared to be waiting for them. Emma's face lit up with surprise and delight. "Daddy, you're having breakfast with us." Daniel folded his newspaper, something softening in his expression as he looked at his daughter. "I thought we might go to the Central Park Zoo after breakfast. Would you like that?" Emma's squeal of excitement was answer enough. Maya caught Daniel's eye over the child's head, giving him an approving nod that he acknowledged with the barest tilt of his chin. The day unfolded with an unfamiliar but welcome rhythm. Daniel was present in a way Maya hadn't witnessed before, pushing Emma on the swings at the park, patiently answering her endless questions about the animals at the zoo, even joining them for an impromptu picnic lunch. Emma blossomed under the attention, chattering more freely than Maya had yet seen, her small hand often reaching for her father's as they walked. Maya observed the transformation with a mixture of satisfaction and something more complicated. Seeing Daniel as a father rather than just a businessman revealed layers she hadn't expected: gentleness beneath the stern exterior, flashes of humor, moments of obvious devotion to his daughter, despite his workaholic tendencies. By late afternoon, when Daniel reluctantly checked his watch and mentioned needing to return for an unavoidable conference call, Emma didn't protest. The morning's connection had filled some empty reservoir within her, making separation easier to bear. Back at the house, while Emma napped exhausted from the excitement, Maya found herself in the kitchen, suddenly craving the simple pleasure of baking, something she often did in her own apartment when design problems needed percolating in her subconscious. The chef appeared alarmed at first by her intrusion into his domain, but relaxed when she explained her intention to make cookies with Emma when she woke. Within minutes, he was enthusiastically showing her where ingredients were stored, clearly pleased by someone else's interest in his workspace. Maya was elbow-deep in cookie dough when Daniel appeared in the doorway, his conference call apparently concluded. "What's all this?" Emma mentioned, wanting to make cookies like we did at the bakery. Maya continued rolling dough, not looking up. "I thought it would be nice to have something ready when she wakes up. You're welcome to join us." To her surprise, Daniel rolled up his sleeves and stepped into the kitchen. "I should warn you, I'm completely useless at anything culinary." Maya smiled despite herself. "It's cookies, not nuclear physics. I'm sure the CEO of Reed Innovations can manage to stir chocolate chips into dough." Their eyes met briefly, a moment of unexpected lightness passing between them. Daniel's usual seriousness gave way to something almost playful as he accepted a mixing bowl from her. "I accept your challenge, Ms. Collins." When Emma woke and found both her father and Maya in the kitchen, flour dusting the counters and the smell of vanilla in the air, her joy was palpable. Soon the kitchen transformed from its usual sterile perfection to joyful chaos. Flour dusted every surface, chocolate chips scattered across counters, and laughter echoed off the high ceilings. Maya showed Emma how to properly crack eggs, while Daniel fumbled with measuring cups, his precision in boardrooms not translating to baking skills. When he accidentally dropped an egg on the floor, Emma's eyes went wide with shock, then dissolved into giggles when Maya scooped up the mess without complaint. By the time the cookies emerged from the oven, golden and fragrant, the kitchen looked like a small bomb had detonated. Yet no one seemed to mind, not even the chef, who returned to find his domain in disarray, but was quickly appeased with a warm cookie and the promise they'd clean everything. That evening, for the first time since Maya's arrival, Daniel joined them for dinner. Afterward, he hesitated at the foot of the stairs when Emma asked if he would read her bedtime story. Actually, Maya interjected gently, "Maybe Daddy could read tonight. I'm a little tired from all our adventures today." Emma considered this, then nodded, reaching for Daniel's hand. "Can you do the voices like Maya does?" Daniel shot Maya a slightly panicked look. "I can try." His uncertainty was endearing, humanizing in a way his usual confidence was not. Later, Maya passed by Emma's room, pausing at the sound of Daniel's deep voice, attempting rather unsuccessfully, but with obvious effort, to mimic a squeaky elephant. Emma's delighted giggles warmed something inside Maya's chest. She was about to continue to her room when Daniel emerged, closing Emma's door softly behind him. "She's asleep." His voice held a note of wonder, as if this ordinary parental achievement was somehow extraordinary. "You did well with the voices." Maya kept her tone light, trying not to make too much of this small but significant step. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looking oddly vulnerable without his usual polished confidence. "I haven't read her a bedtime story since before Elizabeth died." He said it quietly, as if admitting a shameful secret. Maya's heart twisted with unexpected sympathy for Maya. Why not? He was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on some middle distance. Because it hurts too much. Elizabeth always did the voices. The elephant was her specialty. After she died, I tried once, and Emma cried for hours, said I was doing it wrong. After that, it seemed kinder to let the nanny handle it. The simple admission revealed more about his grief than anything he'd said previously. Maya resisted the urge to reach out to offer physical comfort to this man who held himself so rigidly apart from everyone. She's healing Daniel, and so are you, even if it doesn't feel like it. He met her eyes, then something raw and unguarded in his expression. Thank you for today, for pushing me to be present. The moment stretched between them, unexpectedly intimate. Maya felt a flutter of something unfamiliar in her chest and took a step back, suddenly aware of their proximity in the dimly lit hallway. I should get some rest. Early day tomorrow. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Daniel nodded, the professional mask sliding back into place. Good night, Maya. As she prepared for bed, Maya found herself unexpectedly unsettled. Today had shifted something, not just in Emma's relationship with her father, but in Maya's own perception of Daniel Reed. Behind the stern CEO facade was a grieving husband, a father trying his best despite his failures, a man capable of laughter over spilled eggs and determined concentration over cookie dough. This unexpected glimpse of humanity complicated everything. Maya had agreed to this arrangement with clear boundaries, emotional and otherwise. She was here to help Emma, to provide temporary comfort and stability, not to become invested in Daniel's journey through grief. Yet as she drifted towards sleep, Maya found herself wondering about Elizabeth, what she had been like, how she had loved this family, now fractured by her absence, whether she would approve of this strange arrangement meant to help her daughter heal. The question followed Maya into her dreams, where she stood in a sunlit kitchen, much like the one downstairs, watching a faceless woman with blonde hair bake cookies with Emma, Daniel looking on with love in his eyes. Maya woke with tears on her cheeks, unsure why the dream had affected her so deeply. The days that followed fell into a new pattern. Daniel kept his promise about spending time with Emma, rearranging meetings, and delegating tasks to create space in his schedule. Maya observed the change in both father and daughter, Emma blossoming under the consistent attention, Daniel softening almost imperceptibly, moments of genuine joy, breaking through his customary reserve. Meanwhile, preparations for the Tanaka dinner intensified. Maya found herself subjected to briefings from Sarah about Mr. Tanaka's preferences and protocols, Japanese business, etiquette, and the importance of the partnership to Reed Innovations. She endured fittings for an evening dress that cost more than 3 months of her rent lessons, in the finer points of formal dining, from the increasingly bemused house staff, and endless questions about her fictional relationship with Daniel. The night before the dinner, Maya found Daniel in his study, staring at his computer screen with unusual intensity. Everything okay? She asked from the doorway, having come to update him on Emma's excitement about wearing her princess dress tomorrow. Daniel looked up, fatigue evident in the lines around his eyes. Just reviewing the partnership terms again. This deal, it's more than just a business. Maya entered, curiosity piqued by the emotion in his voice. How so? Daniel hesitated, then gestured for her to sit. Elizabeth and I built this company together. Her background in sustainable engineering was the foundation of our most innovative products. When she died, he paused, swallowing hard. This partnership with Tanaka will fund the Elizabeth Reed Foundation for Women in STEM. It's her legacy. Her dream was always to create pathways for girls like Emma to pursue science and technology without the barriers she faced. Maya hadn't expected this glimpse of passion beyond profit, of purpose, rooted in love and loss. I didn't realize. Most people don't. Daniel's smile held no humor. They see the ruthless CEO, the workaholic widower. They don't see that everything I do is to preserve what Elizabeth and I built together to make her dreams reality, even though she's gone. The vulnerability in his admission created a shift in Maya's understanding. His drive wasn't merely ambition or distraction from grief. It was devotion, a different expression of love. Their eyes met across the desk, a new awareness between them. We'll make it work tomorrow, Daniel. For Emma, for Elizabeth's foundation, for everything that matters. His gratitude was palpable, a wordless acknowledgement passing between them before Maya stood to leave. As she reached the door, Daniel spoke again. Maya. She turned back, surprised by the use of her first name. Thank you. not just for tomorrow, but for everything these past weeks. Emma is happier than I've seen her since the accident. Maya smiled softly, something warm unfurling in her chest despite her determination to maintain emotional boundaries. She's a remarkable little girl. You're lucky to have each other. That night, Maya lay awake longer than usual, mind spinning with conflicting emotions. Tomorrow she would pretend to be Daniel's wife, Emma's mother, the missing piece in their fractured family. It was just a role, a performance with clear beginning and end points. Yet somehow the lines were already blurring in ways she hadn't anticipated. This temporary life, the beautiful house, the child who ran to her with open arms, even the complicated man whose grief and determination she was beginning to understand, was starting to feel less like a charade and more like something she might miss when it ended. Maya turned over, pulling the luxurious duvet tighter around her shoulders. This wasn't part of the plan. She was here to help Emma to provide temporary stability during a difficult transition. Developing feelings, whether for the child or her father, would only complicate an already complex situation. With firm resolve, Maya promised herself to maintain clearer boundaries. 3 months would pass quickly. Emma would have her birthday celebration, Daniel would secure his business partnership, and Maya would return to her real life with enough money to launch her design studio properly. Everyone would get what they needed, and these unexpected emotional entanglements would fade like morning mist under the reality of their separate lives. The morning of the Tanaka dinner arrived with a flurry of activity throughout the Reed mansion. Staff members polished silver to mirror-like perfection, arranged elaborate floral displays, and transformed the formal dining room into a showcase of understated luxury. Maya observed the preparations with growing anxiety, the reality of her performance looming larger with each passing hour. Emma twirled in her new dress, a confection of pale pink tulle and satin ribbons, chattering excitedly about the special dinner ahead. Maya helped style her hair, trying to focus on the child's joy rather than her own trepidation about the evening. This wasn't merely playing dress-up, it was a deliberate deception with significant consequences for everyone involved. Sarah appeared at Maya's door precisely 3 hours before the Tanakas' scheduled arrival, accompanied by a styling team. The executive assistant's efficiency was clinical as she directed the hairstylist, makeup artist, and assistant carrying the evening gown Maya would wear. Mrs. Reed typically uses the master suite for preparations. Sarah's voice held a hint of challenge as she emphasized the title Maya didn't rightfully possess. But under the circumstances, we thought this would be more appropriate. Something in Sarah's tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced by the charade, or perhaps didn't approve. Maya met her gaze directly. This arrangement was Daniel's idea, not mine. I'm just trying to help Emma. Sarah's expression remained professionally neutral. Mr. Reed's personal life isn't my concern, only ensuring tonight's dinner secures the Tanaka partnership. Her clipboard seemed like a shield between them. The stylist will finish your preparations by 6. Mr. Reed requests you join him in the drawing room at 6:15 to review final details before the Tanakas arrive at 7. The afternoon passed in a blur of beauty preparations that left Maya feeling increasingly like an imposter. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger, her simple beauty transformed into something more elegant and polished, her casual confidence replaced by the practiced sophistication expected of Daniel Reed's wife. The gown they'd selected was a deep midnight blue, simple yet undeniably expensive, with subtle beading that caught the light when she moved. Looking at her reflection, Maya could almost believe the fiction they were creating, almost but not quite. The hollow feeling in her chest reminded her that this was merely a costume, not her real life. At precisely 6:15, Maya made her way downstairs, the unfamiliar weight of diamond earrings pulling slightly at her lobes. She found Daniel waiting in the drawing room, his attention focused on his phone until she entered. When he looked up, something flickered across his face, surprise perhaps, or appreciation. "You look," he paused, seeming to search for the right word, "like you belong here." The unexpected compliment caught Maya off guard. "Is that what we're going for? That I belong?" Daniel tucked his phone away, approaching with the confident stride that characterized his business persona. "Mr. Tanaka values harmony and natural connections. He'll be watching how we interact, not just listening to what we say. We need to appear comfortable together, like a couple who found their rhythm after months together." Maya nodded, anxiety tightening her chest. "And how do we achieve that in the next 45 minutes? Daniel hesitated, then extended his hand toward her. "May I?" Maya placed her hand in his, uncertain of his intention. He gently pulled her closer, positioning her hand on his shoulder while his settled at her waist. Then to her surprise, he began to move in a simple waltz step, guiding her across the drawing room's polished floor. Elizabeth and I took dancing lessons before our wedding. His voice was softer than usual, tinged with memory. The Tanakas will expect at least one dance after dinner. We should appear practiced. The unexpected intimacy of the moment, his hand warm against the small of her back, the subtle scent of his cologne, the careful way he guided her through the steps created a strange fluttering sensation in Maya's chest. This close, she could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the slight shadow of evening stubble on his jaw, the flecks of amber in his otherwise dark irises. They moved together in silence for several minutes, finding a natural rhythm that surprised them both. When the impromptu dance lesson ended, a curious tension lingered between them, something unspoken and undefined. Daniel cleared his throat, stepping back to a more professional distance. We should discuss our recent history. The Tanakas will ask how we met when we decided to build a life together. Maya nodded, grateful for the return to practical matters. The fiction we created, the charity gala reconnecting at the art exhibition. A small frown creased Daniel's brow. It seems thin now, too convenient. Maya considered for a moment. What if we met through Elizabeth? His questioning look prompted her to continue. I'm a designer. Elizabeth was an engineer. What if we met when I was consulting on one of her projects years ago? We were acquaintances, then nothing more. After she passed, I reached out with condolences, and eventually, that connection deepened. Daniel studied her, something unreadable in his expression. That's actually quite believable. It honors Elizabeth's memory rather than erasing it. The simplicity of his response, the evident relief in his eyes, made Maya realize how important this was to him, not just the pretense itself, but maintaining respect for his late wife, even within their fabrication. Their planning was interrupted by Emma bursting into the room, twirling to show off her dress, her excitement palpable. Maya knelt to adjust a slightly crooked bow, while Daniel watched them with an expression that seemed almost wistful. The moment was broken by Sarah announcing the Tanaka's car had entered the property. Daniel straightened his already impeccable tie tension, returning to his shoulders. This is it. Everything we've worked for hinges on tonight. Maya took a deep breath, smoothing her gown. For Emma, for Elizabeth's foundation. Their eyes met in silent understanding before they moved to the foyer to greet their guests. As they stood side by side, Daniel's hand came to rest lightly at the small of Maya's back, a gesture that felt surprisingly natural despite its calculated nature. Mr. and Mrs. Tanaka arrived precisely on time, an elegant couple in their early 60s who carried themselves with quiet dignity. Kenji Tanaka was shorter than Daniel, but projected an unmistakable authority, while his wife Hanako possessed a serene grace that immediately put Maya at ease despite her nerves. The formal introductions proceeded smoothly, with Daniel presenting Maya as his wife with such natural confidence that for a moment even she almost believed it. Emma, initially shy, quickly warmed to Mrs. Tanaka, who produced a small, exquisitely wrapped gift, a traditional Japanese doll that prompted delighted thanks from the child. The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Maya found herself drawing on skills from countless client meetings, the ability to read a room, to engage in conversation that felt personal without revealing too much to project warmth while maintaining appropriate boundaries. The Japanese couple were sophisticated but not intimidating, their questions about Maya's design work and relationship with Emma showing genuine interest rather than mere politeness. When Mrs. Tanaka complimented the family photographs displayed on a side table, carefully selected images that included Maya through the magic of digital editing, Maya felt a twinge of guilt at the deception. These moments that never happened, these memories they never shared, seemed almost real in the telling. During dinner, as the conversation turned to business matters between Daniel and Mr. Tanaka, Maya found herself engaged in a surprisingly meaningful exchange with Hanako about traditional Japanese art forms and their influence on contemporary design. The older woman's knowledge was extensive, her insights thoughtful, making Maya almost forget the pretense underlying the entire evening. I believe family is the foundation of all successful endeavors. Mr. Tanaka's voice drew Maya's attention back to the main conversation. In Japan, we understand that a man's strength comes from the harmony of his household. Daniel nodded, his expression composed yet earnest. I've come to understand that more deeply in recent years. There was a time when I believed success was measured solely by professional achievements. He glanced at Maya, something unexpectedly genuine in his eyes. But life has a way of revealing what truly matters. The moment felt real, too real, sending an uncomfortable ripple of emotion through Maya's chest. This was all performance, she reminded herself. A means to an end for everyone involved. After dinner came the promised dance with Mr. Tanaka leading his wife onto the small floor cleared in the adjacent room while soft music played. Daniel extended his hand to Maya with a questioning look that she answered by standing and moving into his arms. Their practice earlier proved valuable as they moved together with convincing familiarity. Daniel held her closer than necessary, his breath warm against her hair as he spoke quietly. "They're watching us. Smile like I've just said something amusing." Maya complied, tilting her head back with a practiced laugh. The intimacy of the moment, his hands splayed across her back, their bodies moving in synchronization. The weight of the Tanakas' approving gazes felt simultaneously false and disarmingly real. When the evening finally concluded with warm handshakes and promises of finalized contracts the following week, Maya felt a curious mixture of relief and hollowness. The performance had been successful. Mr. Tanaka had practically confirmed the partnership was secure, yet the victory felt strangely empty. Once the Tanakas' car disappeared down the driveway, Daniel's shoulders relaxed visibly. He turned to Maya, genuine gratitude in his expression. "You were perfect. Better than perfect. The way you engaged with Hanako about Japanese aesthetics, I couldn't have scripted it better." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with his praise for what had essentially been a sustained lie. "I just spoke about things I'm genuinely interested in. The design conversation wasn't fabricated." Nevertheless, Daniel's voice softened. "Thank you, Maya. This partnership means everything." The intensity in his eyes made something twist in Maya's chest, a reminder that, however real some moments had felt tonight, this was still a business arrangement with a defined endpoint. She looked away suddenly, eager to remove the diamonds weighing down her earlobes, to wash away the makeup transforming her into someone she wasn't. "I should check on Emma." The excuse felt flimsy but necessary. Daniel nodded, already reaching for his phone, CEO mode reactivating now that the performance was complete. She fell asleep on the window seat, waiting for the Tanakas to leave. Mrs. Garcia moved her to bed about 20 minutes ago. The information that Emma had been put to bed by staff while they continued their charade struck Maya harder than expected. She excused herself, quickly retreating upstairs to her room, where she could finally shed the costume of Mrs. Reed and return to herself. As Maya carefully removed the borrowed jewelry and designer gown, she confronted an uncomfortable truth. Parts of tonight hadn't felt like acting at all. The ease with which she'd slipped into the role of Daniel's wife, the natural way she'd spoken about Emma, as if she truly were a mother figure in the child's life, these moments had come too readily, felt too comfortable. This wasn't part of the plan. She was here to help Emma through a difficult period, to provide temporary stability, not to develop genuine attachments that would only lead to pain when the arrangement ended. And certainly not to develop confusing feelings for a man still mourning his wife, a man whose primary interest in Maya was her utility in securing business deals and comforting his daughter. Maya fell asleep with these troubling thoughts circling her mind, unsure how to navigate the increasingly blurred lines between performance and reality. The following days brought a subtle but significant shift in the household dynamic. With the Tanaka dinner successfully behind them, Daniel seemed more relaxed, less driven by constant urgency. He continued keeping his promise to spend time with Emma, but now occasionally included Maya in their activities, family movie nights in the home theater, Sunday picnics in the garden. Even an impromptu trip to the Museum of Natural History, where Emma's excitement over the dinosaur exhibits had both adults laughing. These moments of genuine connection, unplanned, unscripted, were both wonderful and worrying. Maya found herself looking forward to Daniel's rare smiles, cataloging the gradual softening of his expressions, noting how his hands sometimes lingered when passing her coffee in the mornings. Worse, she caught herself imagining a future where these interactions weren't part of an elaborate pretense, but simply their life together. Such thoughts were dangerous, setting her up for inevitable heartbreak when the arrangement ended in November. Yet Maya couldn't seem to stop the slow, insidious growth of feelings that had no place in their agreement. Emma, meanwhile, continued to blossom. Her nightmares became less frequent, her personality more vibrant. She began asking to invite school friends for play dates, a request Daniel surprisingly granted after minimal hesitation. The quiet, withdrawn child Maya had first met was emerging from her shell, revealing a funny, creative little girl with her father's intelligence and her mother's artistic sensibility. The growing attachment between Maya and Emma was perhaps the most concerning development. The child had begun slipping into Maya's room on weekend mornings, climbing into bed with her sketchbook to draw quietly until Maya woke. She asked for Maya's opinion on everything from outfit choices to crayon colors, treasuring each response as if collecting precious gems. Worst of all, she'd begun occasionally calling Maya mommy during unguarded moments, a development that sent pangs of both warmth and guilt through Maya's heart. One rainy Saturday afternoon in early October, as they sat together in the sunroom working on an art project, Emma asked the question Maya had been dreading. "Are you going to be my forever mommy now?" The innocent inquiry froze Maya mid-motion, paintbrush suspended over paper. She chose her words with excruciating care, conscious of the damage an impulsive response might cause. "Sweetie, you know I care about you very much. But my real mommy isn't coming back, right?" Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, her eyes focused on her painting rather than Maya's face. "That's what Daddy said. She's in heaven forever." Maya set down her brush, turning to give Emma her full attention. "That's right. Your mommy loved you very much, but she can't come back. She'll always be your real mommy, though. No one can ever replace her." Emma nodded, seeming to digest this. "But you could still be my now mommy, right? Like how Mrs. Garcia says her daughter has a stepmom and a real mom." The child's logic, so simple, so hopeful, made Maya's throat tighten painfully. "Oh, Emma." She pulled the little girl into a gentle hug, mind racing for a response that wouldn't promise the impossible, yet wouldn't crush this fragile hope. Families come in all different shapes. What matters is that you're surrounded by people who love you. It wasn't really an answer, and Emma's slight frown suggested she recognized the evasion. Before she could press further, Daniel appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Had he heard their conversation? How much Emma abandoned the difficult subject, immediately running to show her father the painting she'd been working on. Daniel's attention fixed completely on his daughter, but Maya caught the occasional glance in her direction, something questioning in his eyes. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Daniel found Maya in the small library where she often worked on designs. They needed to talk about what had happened that afternoon, about Emma's growing attachment, about the wisdom of continuing this charade, about the increasingly complicated feelings developing between all three of them. But instead of addressing any of these crucial issues, Daniel brought up the Foundation Gala scheduled for the following weekend. The Elizabeth Reed Foundation event would be their most public appearance as a couple, yet with press coverage and hundreds of attendees from the scientific and business communities. "We need to be prepared for more scrutiny than at the Tanaka dinner." Daniel's tone was all business eyes focused on the tablet where he reviewed the guest list. "These people knew Elizabeth. Some were at our wedding. The press will be looking for a story, the widower moving on, finding happiness again." Maya closed her sketchbook, frustration bubbling up at his avoidance of the more important issues at hand. "And you're okay with that? Using your wife's foundation event to further this pretense?" Daniel's expression hardened slightly. The foundation was Elizabeth's dream. This partnership with Tanaka is making it a reality. Everything I'm doing honors her memory and her vision. Including pretending to have a new wife. Maya couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "Your daughter called me mommy today, Daniel. She's asking if I'm going to be her forever mommy. Don't you think we should be discussing that rather than how to convince a ballroom full of strangers our relationship is real?" The flash of pain across Daniel's features made Maya regret her sharp tone immediately. He set the tablet down, running a hand through his hair in a now familiar gesture of distress. "What did you tell her? The truth that her real mother can never be replaced. That families come in different forms." Maya sighed, the fight draining from her. "But she deserves more than vague platitudes, Daniel. She needs to understand what's happening, what to expect when this ends." The word "ends" hung in the air between them, heavier than it should have been, for what was, after all, a temporary business arrangement. Daniel turned away, looking out the library window into the darkness beyond. "When Elizabeth died, I thought the hardest part would be living without her." He spoke so quietly Maya had to lean forward to hear. But it wasn't. The hardest part was watching Emma suffer and not knowing how to help her. His shoulders tensed visibly. Now she's finally healing, finally happy again. And in a few weeks, I'm supposed to explain that this too was temporary, another loss for her to endure. The raw pain in his voice stripped away Maya's defenses. She stood moving to stand beside him at the window. We knew this would be complicated from the beginning. We just underestimated how quickly Emma would attach, how real it would all start to feel. Daniel turned to her, then something unguarded in his expression that made Maya's heart beat faster. And what about you? How real does it feel to you? The question was dangerous territory, too honest, too close to emotions that neither of them had acknowledged. Maya took a step back, needing distance from his searching gaze. I care about Emma. That's real. The rest is professional. Like we agreed. Daniel held her eyes for a long moment before nodding, the guardedness returning to his features. Of course, professional. The strange tension between them lingered in the days that followed, an undercurrent beneath the surface of their carefully maintained performance. They continued the charade flawlessly, family breakfasts, weekend outings, bedtime routines that included both of them reading to Emma. To outside observers, they appeared the perfect blended family, healing together after tragedy. But in quiet moments when Emma was asleep or occupied elsewhere, a new awkwardness pervaded their interactions. Daniel retreated more frequently to his study, while Maya found reasons to work late on her designs rather than spend evenings in his company. They were like actors who'd forgotten whether they were on or off stage, uncertain which behaviors were performance and which were genuine. The Foundation Gala arrived amid this confused atmosphere, a glittering event at the Museum of Science and Innovation that Elizabeth had helped design before her death. Maya found herself once again transformed by stylists into a more polished, elegant version of herself, this time in a champagne-colored gown that complemented Daniel's classic tuxedo. As they prepared to leave, Emma watched them with wide-eyed admiration, declaring they looked like a prince and princess. The child's delight only deepened Maya's discomfort with the evening ahead. Another elaborate performance, another set of memories that would make the eventual separation more painful for everyone involved. The gala itself was a blur of introductions, calculated smiles, and carefully rehearsed responses to inevitable questions about their relationship. Maya played her part perfectly, standing by Daniel's side as he gave a moving speech about Elizabeth's vision for the foundation, supporting him through emotional reunions with his late wife's colleagues and friends, dancing with him beneath crystal chandeliers, while photographers captured what appeared to be a touching love story of healing and second chances. It was during one such dance, as they moved together with practiced ease, that Daniel's professional mask slipped momentarily. It's strange. His voice was low, meant only for her ears. Tonight should feel wrong, celebrating Elizabeth's foundation with you beside me instead of her. But somehow it doesn't. She would have liked you, I think. The unexpected admission caught Maya off guard, her step faltering slightly before Daniel steadied her with a hand at her waist. What makes you say that? Daniel's eyes held hers more open than she'd seen them before. You're honest, stubborn when it matters. You put Emma's needs above everything else, including my comfort. His lips curved into a small smile. Elizabeth would have appreciated all of that. She never had patience for people who told me only what I wanted to hear. Maya didn't know how to respond to this glimpse of Elizabeth as a real person rather than the perfect, sainted figure of memory. Before she could formulate a reply, they were interrupted by a distinguished older gentleman, a former mentor of Elizabeth's, who wanted to introduce Daniel to a potential donor. The moment passed, but its impact lingered. For the remainder of the evening, Maya found herself looking at the photographs of Elizabeth displayed throughout the venue with new eyes, not as the ghost she was competing with, but as a remarkable woman whose legacy continued through the foundation, through Emma, and through the man who had loved her. By the time they returned home long after midnight, the emotional weight of the evening had left them both subdued. They stood in the foyer, the house quiet around them, caught in that strange liminal space between performance and reality. Tonight was a success. Daniel loosened his bow tie exhaustion, evident in the slight slump of his shoulders. The foundation secured commitments for almost twice our funding goal. Maya slipped off her uncomfortable heels with a sigh of relief. Good. Elizabeth would be proud of what you've accomplished in her name. Daniel studied her for a long moment, something unresolved in his expression. I couldn't have done it without you. Not just tonight, but all of it, the Tanaka partnership, Emma's improvement, even my own. He hesitated, seeming to search for the right word. Healing. I haven't thanked you properly for any of it. Maya shook her head, uncomfortable with his gratitude. It's what you're paying me for, isn't it? The words came out harsher than intended. A defense mechanism against the dangerous warmth spreading through her chest added his words. Daniel flinched almost imperceptibly, then nodded, his expression closing. Of course. The business arrangement. His tone had cooled considerably. I should check on Emma. Good night, Maya. He turned and headed upstairs, leaving Maya alone with the bitter taste of regret. She hadn't meant to reduce everything between them to a financial transaction, but panic had driven her to establish distance when he'd come too close to emotions neither of them could afford. As October progressed, bringing brilliant foliage to the trees surrounding the Reed estate and Halloween decorations to the neighborhood, the atmosphere in the household grew increasingly strained. Daniel retreated into work mode once again, the hands-on father of recent weeks replaced by the distracted CEO who took calls during dinner and missed bedtime stories for late meetings. Maya tried to compensate for his absence, maintaining Emma's routine and happiness while silently cursing Daniel's apparent regression. Had their uncomfortable moment after the gala driven him away, or was he simply preparing himself and Emma for the inevitable separation in November? Whatever his reasoning, the effect on Emma was noticeable. The nightmares returned along with a clinginess that suggested the child sensed something was wrong. She asked about her father, constantly craved reassurance that he wasn't angry, that he wasn't staying away because of something she'd done. Maya did her best to soothe these fears while growing increasingly frustrated with Daniel for creating them. After a particularly difficult night when Emma woke screaming from a nightmare about everyone leaving, Maya decided a confrontation could no longer be avoided. She found Daniel in his study as expected, focused on his laptop with the intensity that had characterized their early days together. Without preamble, Maya closed the door behind her and planted herself directly in his line of sight. Emma had another nightmare tonight, the third this week. Daniel looked up, fatigue evident in the shadows beneath his eyes. I heard her. I was going to check in, but Mrs. Garcia said you had it handled. That's not the point. Maya struggled to keep her voice even. She's backsliding, Daniel. All the progress she made, all her happiness, it's eroding because you've suddenly decided to become a ghost in your own home. Daniel's jaw tightened. I have responsibilities to your daughter. Maya cut him off, frustration boiling over. Not just to your company or Elizabeth's foundation or whatever else you're using to avoid what's happening right here. Emma thinks you're pulling away because you don't want her anymore. Because she's done something wrong. That's ridiculous. Of course I want her. I love her more than anything. Daniel stood abruptly, agitation driving him to pace the confines of the study. I'm trying to secure her future, to build something lasting for her. Maya crossed her arms, refusing to be intimidated by his sudden movement. What she needs isn't some abstract future security. She needs her father present and engaged right now. She needs stability, consistency. Her voice softened slightly. She needs to know that when I leave after her birthday, you won't disappear too. Daniel stopped pacing, something vulnerable flashing across his features. Is that what you think? That I'm distancing myself from her, aren't you? Maya challenged. You've barely spent 20 uninterrupted minutes with her in the past 2 weeks. After months of progress, of real connection, you've reverted completely to the distracted, absent father I first met. She took a step closer, holding his gaze. What changed, Daniel? What are you afraid of? The question hung in the air between them, too direct to evade. Daniel turned away, hands gripping the edge of his desk until his knuckles whitened. I'm afraid of how much this is going to hurt her. His voice was barely audible. When you leave, when everything changes again. I thought, he exhaled slowly. I thought if I created some distance now, it might be easier for all of us. The admission, so honest, so misguided, deflated Maya's anger instantly. She moved to stand beside him, close but not touching. You can't protect her from loss by making her practice it, Daniel. That's not how healing works. Then what do you suggest? There was no challenge in his question, only genuine uncertainty. A CEO out of his depth in the territory of emotional well-being. Maya considered carefully before responding. We need to prepare her, but not by withdrawing. We create a transition plan. We talk about me moving nearby, staying in her life in a different capacity, maybe as a friend who visits, who still does art projects, and baking days, just not living here. Daniel looked at her with an unreadable expression. And is that what you want? To stay in her life after our arrangement ends, the question seemed to ask something more than its surface meaning. Maya hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal of her own tangled emotions. I care about Emma. I don't want to disappear from her life completely. But continued connection would require boundaries, clarity about what role I would actually play going forward. Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze intense. And what about? He paused, seeming to choose his words with unusual care. What about your role in my life? Would that also continue in some capacity? The question sent Maya's heart racing, opening possibilities she'd forbidden herself from considering. Before she could formulate a response, a small voice from the doorway interrupted them. I had another bad dream. They turned simultaneously to find Emma standing there in her pink pajamas, clutching her stuffed elephant, tears streaking her cheeks. Daniel moved first, crossing the room to lift his daughter into his arms with a tenderness that contradicted his recent distance. I'm sorry you had a bad dream, sweetheart. Do you want to tell me about it? He carried her to the leather sofa against the wall, settling her on his lap while looking to Maya with silent invitation to join them. Maya hesitated only briefly before sitting beside them, her hand automatically reaching to smooth Emma's tangled curls. As the child described her nightmare, a confused narrative about being lost in a house where all the doors kept disappearing, Maya and Daniel exchanged a look of shared concern and commitment over her head. In that moment, the tension between them transformed into something else, a unified purpose, a mutual dedication to this child who needed them both. Whatever confusion existed in their personal feelings, whatever uncertainty clouded their future, they were in agreement about one thing: Emma's well-being came first. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep between them on the sofa, Daniel carefully gathered his daughter into his arms to carry her back to bed. Maya followed, watching as he tucked the covers around Emma with gentle precision, pressing a kiss to her forehead before stepping back. They retreated to the hallway, closing Emma's door softly behind them. The conversation from earlier hung unfinished between them, important questions left unanswered. We should talk about this more tomorrow. Daniel's voice was quiet in the dimly lit corridor. About the transition plan, about what comes after. Maya nodded, suddenly exhausted by the emotional weight of the evening. Tomorrow. They stood there a moment longer, neither quite ready to separate despite their agreement to continue the conversation another time. Finally, Daniel took a half step closer, his hand briefly touching her arm, a gesture somewhere between comfort and something more intimate. Thank you for caring enough to confront me, for understanding what Emma needs better than I do sometimes. Maya offered a small smile, trying to ignore the warmth that spread from his touch. You're doing your best in an impossible situation. We both are. Daniel's eyes held hers for a long moment before he nodded and stepped back. Good night, Maya. As she retreated to her room, Maya acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks. Her feelings for both Emma and Daniel had grown far beyond the parameters of their arrangement. What had begun as a professional agreement had somehow transformed into genuine attachment to a child who saw her as a mother figure, to a man whose grief and dedication had gradually revealed a person of unexpected depth and complexity. The realization brought no clarity, only heightened confusion. In less than a month, their arrangement would officially end. Emma would celebrate her birthday, the charade would conclude, and Maya would return to her real life. Except now, the thought of that real life, her Brooklyn apartment, her solitary routines, her career ambitions, felt strangely hollow compared to what she'd found in this temporary family. Maya stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the moonlit gardens beyond, wondering how something that had begun as a clear business transaction had become so hopelessly, dangerously entangled with genuine emotion. The line between performance and reality had blurred beyond recognition, leaving her unsure which feelings were authentic and which were merely products of their sustained pretense. Tomorrow they would discuss transition plans and future arrangements with the rational clarity of business partners. Tonight, Maya allowed herself to acknowledge the uncomfortable truth that somewhere along the way, she had begun to wish their fabricated family could somehow become real. Morning light streamed through the windows of the breakfast nook as Maya, Daniel, and Emma shared pancakes and plans for Emma's upcoming birthday. The atmosphere between the adults remained charged with unspoken tension from their interrupted conversation the night before, but they maintained a united front of cheerfulness for Emma's benefit. The little girl chattered excitedly about her party theme, butterflies and rainbows, while Maya sketched possible decoration ideas on a napkin. It's going to be the best birthday ever because you're both here. Emma beamed, maple syrup glistening on her chin. Mommy Maya makes the best cakes and Daddy tells the best stories. Daniel's fork paused midway to his mouth, his eyes meeting Maya's over Emma's head. The child's casual use of Mommy Maya hung in the air between them, a complication neither had fully prepared for despite their awareness of her growing attachment. After breakfast, when Emma left for her art class with the tutor, Daniel and Maya retreated to his study for the conversation they'd postponed. The room felt smaller somehow, the air heavy with possibilities neither dared name directly. About last night, Daniel closed the door behind them, maintaining a careful distance. You mentioned a transition plan for Emma. Maya nodded, grateful for the focus on practical matters rather than the more nebulous question he'd posed about her role in his life. I think we need to start preparing her gently. Not for me to disappear completely, but for a change in how I'm present in her life. Daniel settled into his chair, fingers steepled before him, his thinking pose Maya had learned over these months. What exactly would that look like? Maya perched on the edge of the leather sofa, organizing her thoughts. After her birthday celebration, I could move back to my apartment, but visit regularly, maybe Sunday afternoons for art projects, occasional dinners. We frame it as me needing my own space for work, not as abandonment. The important thing is consistency. Whatever schedule we establish, we maintain it, so Emma knows she can count on seeing me. Daniel considered this, his expression unreadable. And how long would this transition period last? The question carried weight beyond its surface meaning. Maya chose her words carefully. That depends on what we decide is best for Emma and what we want going forward. The moment stretched between them, charged with unacknowledged possibilities. Daniel leaned forward slightly. What do you want, Maya? Before she could formulate a response that wouldn't expose too much of her conflicted heart, Sarah knocked and entered, without waiting for acknowledgement, tablet in hand as always. Her timing couldn't have been worse, or perhaps from Maya's perspective better. Sorry to interrupt. Sarah didn't look sorry at all, her gaze coolly assessing the tension between them. The Tanaka contracts have arrived for final review before signing, and Mrs. Reed's mother called. She'll be arriving tomorrow for an extended visit before Emma's birthday. Daniel's eyebrows rose in surprise. Evelyn's coming early. She wasn't expected until next week. Sarah's expression remained professionally neutral. She mentioned wanting extra time with her granddaughter before the birthday celebrations. Her plane lands at 11 tomorrow morning. The announcement landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples of concern through Maya's thoughts. Evelyn Morgan Reed, Daniel's mother-in-law, Elizabeth's mother, had been mentioned occasionally, but never in detail. Maya knew only that she lived in Boston, visited infrequently since her daughter's death, and had not been informed about the arrangement with Maya. Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, visibly processing this new complication. Thank you, Sarah. Please make sure the East guest suite is prepared. After Sarah departed, the energy in the room had shifted completely. The intimate conversation about their future now seemed impossibly distant, overshadowed by the immediate challenge of Evelyn's arrival. I'm assuming your mother-in-law doesn't know about our arrangement. Maya kept her tone carefully neutral. Daniel exhaled slowly. No. She believes you're Emma's new caretaker, nothing more. Evelyn has been fragile since Elizabeth died. I've been waiting for the right time to explain the situation. The right time apparently wasn't in the 3 months you've known I'd be here. Maya couldn't keep the edge from her voice, frustration rising at yet another complication in their already tangled situation. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. Evelyn lost her only daughter. She's been struggling with depression since the accident. Forgive me if I've been cautious about how to present our unconventional arrangement to a grieving mother. The rebuke was gentle but firm, reminding Maya of the layers of loss surrounding the Reed family, layers she had entered into but couldn't fully comprehend. She softened immediately. I'm sorry, you're right. This is delicate for everyone involved. Daniel's posture relaxed. It's all right, I should have prepared better for this possibility. His gaze grew distant, calculating. Perhaps it's best if we maintain the caretaker narrative while she's here. Minimize complications. Maya nodded, ignoring the twinge of disappointment at returning to her original role after months of increasing integration into family life. Back to Ms. Collins, then. For Emma's sake, we should probably explain the change in how she addresses me while her grandmother visits. Something like regret flickered across Daniel's features. Yes, I'll speak with Emma this afternoon. Evelyn is traditional. Old Boston family, certain ideas about propriety. she'd find the current situation difficult to accept. The unfinished conversation about their future hung suspended between them, pushed aside by more immediate concerns. Maya stood needing distance to process this new development. I should make some adjustments to my schedule. Give you and Emma private time with Evelyn. Daniel nodded, already reaching for the contracts on his desk. CEO mode, engaging as a defense against the emotional complexity of their situation. We'll continue our discussion after. Such a simple word to encompass so much uncertainty. Evelyn Morgan Reed arrived precisely on schedule, sweeping into the mansion with the practiced elegance of old money and impeccable breeding. Tall and slender like her late daughter, with silver-streaked blonde hair and penetrating blue eyes, she carried herself with a dignity that commanded immediate respect. Despite her 65 years and the grief that had carved subtle lines around her eyes, she remained strikingly beautiful. Maya hung back as Daniel greeted his mother-in-law with a formal embrace in the foyer, observing the complex dynamic between them. There was affection there, certainly, but also a palpable tension. Awkward dance of two people connected primarily through someone no longer present. Emma had no such reservations, launching herself into her grandmother's arms with unbridled enthusiasm. Evelyn's entire demeanor transformed as she held her granddaughter, her composure melting into genuine warmth. The resemblance between Emma and her maternal line became startlingly apparent. In that moment, 3 generations of Morgan women, linked by blood and bone structure, despite the absence of the middle connection. When introductions could no longer be postponed, Daniel presented Maya with careful neutrality. This is Ms. Collins, Emma's caretaker. She's been with us since September. Evelyn's assessment was swift and thorough, taking in Maya's simple dress, unpretentious appearance, and the way Emma stayed close to her side despite the excitement of her grandmother's arrival. Something flickered in the older woman's eyes, recognition perhaps of a physical resemblance to her daughter that was uncomfortable to acknowledge. Ms. Collins. Evelyn extended a manicured hand, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. How fortunate that Emma has found someone she connects with. My granddaughter can be particular about who she allows into her circle. The observation carried layers of meaning Maya couldn't fully decipher. She accepted the handshake with a professional smile, determined to navigate this new challenge with grace for Emma's sake. Emma's a remarkable child. It's a privilege to work with her. Evelyn's gaze lingered a moment longer than necessary, assessing before she turned her attention back to Daniel and Emma. The subtle dismissal was clear. Maya was staff, not family, and therefore peripheral to the reunion. The days that followed established a new rhythm in the household. Evelyn seamlessly inserted herself into family routines: breakfast with Emma, or afternoons in the garden, evenings reviewing family photo albums. She was unfailingly polite to Maya, but maintained a distinct barrier, treating her with the courteous indifference typically reserved for a household staff. Emma, true to Daniel's careful explanation, had stopped calling Maya mommy in her grandmother's presence, though occasionally Maya caught confused looks from the child when Evelyn was particularly directive about family matters. The return to Ms. Collins felt like a step backward after months of growing closeness, a reminder of the temporary nature of Maya's role despite the emotional bonds that had formed. Daniel navigated the situation with diplomatic skill, balancing a tension between his mother-in-law daughter and Maya, without betraying the complexity of his relationship with the latter. Only in brief private moments, passing in hallways, exchanging glances over Emma's head, did Maya catch glimpses of apology or frustration in his eyes. Their unfinished conversation about the future remained suspended, impossible to resume with Evelyn's constant presence. The question Daniel had asked, "What do you want?" Maya echoed in her thoughts during quiet moments, still lacking a clear answer she dared articulate, even to herself. A week into Evelyn's visit, the carefully maintained equilibrium began to fracture. It started with small observations from the older woman, comments about Emma's hair being styled differently than Elizabeth preferred, or gentle corrections to Maya's approaches to the child's routine. Each remark was delivered with impeccable politeness that made objections seem petty, yet the cumulative effect was a steady undermining of Maya's role and connection with Emma. Emma, sensitive to the undercurrents between the adults in her life, grew increasingly clingy with Maya. When Evelyn wasn't present, whispering questions about whether Maya was going away because Grandma didn't like her. The child's insecurity tugged at Maya's heart, making it increasingly difficult to maintain the professional distance Evelyn's presence required. The situation came to a head one evening when Maya found Emma in tears after being told by her grandmother that her birthday party decorations should be proper, rather than the rainbow and butterfly theme she'd been planning with Maya for weeks. Elizabeth always had such elegant birthday celebrations. Evelyn's voice drifted from the sitting room where she spoke with Daniel, unaware of Maya comforting Emma in the hallway. The Morgans have hosted the same garden party for generations of little girls. It's tradition. Daniel's response was measured diplomatic. Emma seems quite set on the rainbow theme. She and Maya have been planning it for some time. Maya felt Emma tense at the mention of her name, the child's small hand tightening around her own as they listened. Evelyn's sigh was audible even from the hallway. Daniel, dear, I understand you've relied heavily on Miss Collins during this difficult time. But birthday celebrations are family affairs. Elizabeth would want Emma to have the same beautiful experiences she treasured as a child. The invocation of Elizabeth, wielded like a gentle but devastating weapon, hung in the air. Maya knelt beside Emma, wiping tears from the child's cheeks with tender thumbs. Why don't you go up to your room and finish that special drawing? I'll be up in a few minutes to help with the colors. After Emma reluctantly departed upstairs, Maya took a steadying breath and entered the sitting room. She hadn't intended to confront the situation directly, but Emma's tears had triggered a protective instinct that overrode caution. Daniel looked up in surprise as Maya appeared, something like relief crossing his features, before he masked it with careful neutrality. Evelyn turned more slowly elegant, even in her subtle dismissal. Forgive the interruption, Maya kept her voice level professional. But I thought you should know Emma is quite upset about the suggested changes to her birthday plans. Evelyn's eyebrows rose fractionally. While I appreciate your concern, Ms. Collins' family traditions are important for a child's sense of continuity and belonging, especially one who has experienced such loss. The implication was clear: Maya was not family and therefore had no legitimate say in such matters. She felt Daniel's gaze on her, measuring her response, perhaps expecting her to retreat from the implied rebuke. Instead, Maya took a seat across from them, claiming equal footing in the conversation. Emma has been talking about rainbows and butterflies for weeks. It's the first birthday since her mother's death that she's shown genuine excitement about. Changing plans now would devastate her. Evelyn's posture stiffened, her aristocratic features arranging themselves into polite disagreement. Children are naturally adaptable. Once Emma sees the lovely garden party we Morgan women have enjoyed for generations, she'll understand the value of the tradition. Daniel shifted uncomfortably between them, caught in the crossfire of competing visions for his daughter's happiness. Perhaps a compromise, Maya, I'm not sure you fully understand. Evelyn interrupted gently but firmly. Elizabeth grew up with these traditions. She would want her daughter to experience them as well. As Emma's caretaker, I'm sure you want what Elizabeth would have wanted for her child. The manipulation was masterful, invoking the deceased mother, while simultaneously reminding Maya of her subordinate position. Maya felt a flash of anger, not for herself, but for Emma, whose wishes were being sacrificed on the altar of adult grief and tradition. With all due respect, Mrs. Morgan Reed, I spend 8 to 10 hours a day with Emma. I've watched her emerge from grief and withdrawal over the past months. Daniel sat forward at her words, perhaps sensing the shift in tone. Maya continued, holding Evelyn's gaze steadily. What Emma needs isn't to be folded into traditions she doesn't remember or understand. She needs adults who listen to her wishes and respect her as an individual, not just as an extension of her mother's memory. The sitting room fell silent, the ornate grandfather clock in the corner suddenly loud in the absence of voices. Evelyn's expression had frozen into careful blankness, while Daniel looked torn between intervention and allowing the confrontation to play out. After what seemed an eternity, Evelyn set her teacup down with precise movements. You seem to have developed quite strong opinions about my granddaughter's upbringing, Miss Collins. Her tone was ice wrapped in silk. Might I ask what qualifies you to override a grandmother's wisdom and a family's traditions? The question was a trap designed to reinforce Maya's outsider status. Before she could formulate a response that wouldn't reveal too much about her complex role in the household, Daniel finally spoke. Maya has been instrumental in helping Emma heal. His voice was quiet but firm. She's earned the right to have input on matters concerning Emma's happiness. Evelyn's gaze shifted to her son-in-law, reassessing the dynamic she was witnessing. Something calculation occurred behind her eyes as she looked between Daniel and Maya, seeing perhaps more than either one had revealed. I see. Evelyn's voice had cooled several degrees. Perhaps there are aspects of the household arrangement I don't fully understand. Daniel straightened, recognizing the dangerous territory they were approaching. Mother Evelyn Emma's birthday should reflect her wishes. The butterfly and rainbow theme stays. His tone made it clear the matter was settled, though the undercurrents of the conversation remained turbulent. Maya excused herself shortly after retreating upstairs to help Emma with her drawing as promised. The child's mood improved with Maya's assurance that her birthday theme was secure, but the incident left a residue of tension that permeated the household for days afterward. Evelyn's attitude toward Maya shifted subtly following their confrontation. The polite indifference replaced by watchful assessment, as if re-evaluating a situation previously misunderstood. Her observations became more pointed, her questions more probing, particularly regarding Maya's background, education, and long-term career plans. Each inquiry seemed innocent on the surface, but carried an undercurrent of investigation that made Maya increasingly uneasy. Daniel noticed the change as well, inserting himself more frequently into interactions between the two women, attempting to deflect his mother-in-law's attention or create buffers around potentially revealing topics. His protective instinct, while appreciated, only served to heighten Evelyn's apparent suspicion that something more complex than an employer-employee relationship existed. The situation reached critical mass a week before Emma's birthday, when Maya overheard Evelyn on the phone in the garden, her voice carrying through the open French doors. "I'm telling you, Catherine, something isn't right here. The woman is practically a carbon copy of Elizabeth, same coloring, similar features. And the way Daniel defers to her about Emma." Evelyn's voice dropped lower, forcing Maya to strain it to hear. "I found them in his study yesterday, heads together over birthday plans, looking for all the world like." Her voice trailed off, implication clear. Maya stepped back from the doors, heart pounding. The conversation confirmed what she'd suspected. Evelyn had noticed the physical resemblance to her daughter and was drawing concerning conclusions about Daniel's motivations in hiring her. The implications were uncomfortable at best, disturbing at worst, that Daniel had sought a replacement for his wife, someone to fill the void in both his and Emma's lives. The thought sent a chill through Maya. Was there truth in it? Had Daniel initially approached her because she reminded him of Elizabeth? The idea undermined everything that had developed between them, reducing their complex relationship to a ghost-chasing exercise rather than genuine connection. Maya retreated to her room, needing space to process this new perspective on their arrangement. The timing couldn't have been worse. Emma's birthday was approaching rapidly. The transition plan remained undefined, and now Evelyn's suspicions threatened to complicate an already delicate situation. She was still contemplating these troubling thoughts when a knock came at her door. Daniel entered at her acknowledgement, his expression grave. "We need to talk. Evelyn has been asking questions I'm not sure how to answer." Maya gestured for him to close the door, then shared what she'd overheard in the garden. His reaction, a wince of recognition rather than surprise, confirmed her worst fears. "You never mentioned I resembled Elizabeth." Her voice was carefully controlled, masking the hurt beneath. 3 months of growing closer, of building, is something I thought was real, and you never once thought to mention that I look like your dead wife." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, agitation evident in the gesture. "It wasn't like that, Maya. Yes, there's a superficial resemblance, blonde hair, similar build. But it's not why I approached you, isn't it?" Maya challenged, needing certainty. "Emma saw me in that bakery and immediately connected with me. You said she called me mommy after knowing me for minutes. Was that connection random, or was she responding to someone who looked like the mother she lost?" Daniel paced the limited confines of her sitting area, tension radiating from his shoulders. "Maybe the resemblance helped initially with Emma. I won't deny that. But what developed after between Emma and you, between us, that has nothing to do with Elizabeth." Maya wanted desperately to believe him, but doubt had taken root. "Is that why you never talk about her? Why there are so few photographs displayed? Were you trying to prevent me from noticing the resemblance myself? That's not fair." Daniel's voice sharpened with genuine hurt. "I don't talk about Elizabeth because it's painful, not because I'm hiding something from you." The rawness in his tone gave Maya pause, reminding her that regardless of his motivations in approaching her, initially his grief was real and deserved respect. She softened slightly, moving past accusation to the more pressing concern. "What are we going to do about Evelyn? Her suspicions won't just disappear, especially with Emma's birthday bringing everything to a head." Daniel sank onto the edge of the sofa, suddenly looking exhausted. "I don't know. Coming clean seems impossible. She'd never understand the arrangement we made. But continuing the pretense is becoming untenable. The irony wasn't lost on Maya. They'd become so convincing in their performance as a family unit that the suspicion wasn't of deception, but of Daniel replacing his wife too quickly. Either truth would hurt Evelyn and potentially damage her relationship with both Daniel and Emma. Perhaps I should leave before the birthday. Maya voiced the thought that had been forming since overhearing Evelyn's conversation. If I'm not here, the focus can return to family without complications. Daniel's head snapped up, alarm clear in his expression. No, that would devastate Emma right before her birthday. And it wouldn't solve anything with Evelyn. She'd still have questions, still harbor suspicions. His voice softened vulnerability, seeping through his usual control. And I need you here. For Emma. And for me. The admission hung in the air between them, neither fully addressing the deeper implications nor dismissing them. Before they could navigate this emotional territory, another knock interrupted Evelyn herself, requesting a private word with Daniel about family matters. The pointed exclusion of Maya from the conversation was unmistakable. As Daniel departed with an apologetic glance, Maya was left with the uncomfortable certainty that whatever Evelyn wished to discuss involved her presence in the household. Her suspicions were confirmed later that evening when Daniel appeared at her door again, his expression grave. Evelyn confronted me directly about our relationship. She thinks I've been hiding a romantic involvement with you out of some misplaced guilt about moving on after Elizabeth. Maya sat on the edge of her bed processing this development. What did you tell her? Daniel leaned against the door frame, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. The truth. Well, part of it. That you were hired initially as Emma's caretaker, that we've grown close over the months, but that we're not. He hesitated, searching for the right phrasing. Romantically involved. The careful way he navigated the statement highlighted the strange limbo of their relationship. Not lovers certainly, but something more complex than employer and employee, more intimate than friends. Maya nodded slowly, accepting the partial truth as the best option available. Did she believe you? Daniel's slight grimace answered before his words did. She's reserving judgment, but she's made it clear she'll be watching us closely. And she's expressed concern about Emma becoming attached to someone who might not remain in her life long term. The observation cut close to Maya's own fears about her growing bond with Emma. 3 months had expanded into emotional territory neither she nor Daniel had anticipated, creating attachments that would be painful to sever, regardless of how carefully they managed the transition. The unfinished conversation about their future loomed larger than ever, yet circumstances continued to prevent its resolution. With Evelyn's watchful presence and Emma's birthday approaching, personal desires and feelings remained secondary to the immediate challenges facing their unconventional household. Days passed in a delicate dance of avoidance and performance. Evelyn maintained a veneer of polite acceptance while clearly monitoring every interaction between Daniel and Maya for signs of impropriety. Emma, sensitive to the undercurrents of tension, became increasingly clingy with both Maya and Daniel, as if fearing they might disappear if she didn't maintain physical contact. Birthday preparations continued despite the strained atmosphere, with Maya and Evelyn reaching an uneasy compromise that incorporated both the rainbow butterfly theme Emma wanted and certain Morgan family traditions Evelyn valued. The detente was fragile but functional, and held together by mutual concern for Emma's happiness on her special day. The morning of Emma's birthday dawned clear and crisp, a perfect November day, with azure skies and just enough autumn chill to justify the beautiful cashmere sweater Maya had gifted the birthday girl. The household buzzed with preparations for the afternoon party, caterers arranging colorful displays in the garden tent, decorators hanging the last of the butterfly, mobiles from tree branches, staff polishing silver serving pieces that had graced Morgan Reed's celebrations for generations. Emma herself was a whirlwind of excitement, bouncing from Maya to Daniel to Evelyn, in turns, her happiness momentarily bridging the complicated dynamics between the adults in her life. Maya helped her dress in the special outfit they'd selected together, a butterfly patterned dress with rainbow accents that somehow managed to be both whimsical and elegant enough to satisfy Evelyn's standards. "You look beautiful, birthday girl." Maya knelt to adjust a slightly crooked bow, her heart aching with love for this child who had changed her life in ways she could never have anticipated 3 months ago. Emma threw her arms around Maya's neck, squeezing tightly. "This is the best birthday ever because you're here." She pulled back, her expression suddenly serious beyond her years. "You won't go away after, will you? Like Mommy did." The innocent question landed like a physical blow. Maya cupped Emma's face gently, choosing her words with excruciating care. "I will always care about you, Emma. No matter where I am or what happens, that won't change." It wasn't a direct promise to stay, but neither was it a preparation for leaving another equivocation in a situation that had become defined by them. Emma seemed to accept the assurance, her smile returning as she grabbed Maya's hand to lead her downstairs, where the final birthday preparations awaited. The party itself was a triumph of careful planning and genuine joy. 30 children from Emma's newly expanded social circle arrived with parents in tow, filling the Reed Garden with laughter and energy. Games had been organized, entertainers hired, and a magnificent butterfly-shaped cake created that drew gasps of delight from children and adults alike. Maya moved through the celebration with practiced ease, ensuring everything ran smoothly while giving Emma space to shine as the center of attention. She caught Daniel watching her occasionally, something unreadable in his expression, pride perhaps, or gratitude, or something deeper. Neither of them had named. Evelyn too observed Maya throughout the party, her assessment less guarded than in previous days. As Maya organized a particularly successful game of musical butterflies, a twist on musical chairs involving butterfly-shaped cushions, Evelyn appeared at her side with 2 glasses of champagne. "You have quite a gift with children." Evelyn offered one of the glasses, the gesture more conciliatory than any she'd made previously. "Emma is fortunate to have your influence in her life." Maya accepted both the champagne and the olive branch it represented, recognizing the effort such acknowledgement must have cost Elizabeth's mother. "Thank you. That means a great deal coming from you." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching Emma laugh with her friends, her face alight with happiness that had been so rare in the months following her mother's death. "She looks like Elizabeth at that age." Evelyn's voice held the familiar undertone of grief, but something else too, acceptance perhaps. "The same joy, the same light." Maya nodded, uncertain how to respond to this unexpected opening. "Daniel has mentioned how much Emma takes after her mother." Evelyn sipped, her champagne gaze still fixed on her granddaughter. "Not just in appearance, Elizabeth had the same resilience, the same capacity for happiness, even after difficulty." She glanced sideways at Maya, assessment still present, but less guarded. "You've helped bring that back for her. Whatever else is happening in this household, I can't deny the positive effect you've had on my granddaughter." Before Maya could respond to this surprising acknowledgement, commotion near the cake table drew their attention. It was time for the birthday song and wish-making, the pinnacle of the celebration. Maya moved to help light the candles. The conversation with Evelyn left unfinished, but somehow changed. As family and friends gathered around the butterfly cake, Maya found herself positioned naturally beside Daniel, with Emma between them. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. They appeared for all the world like parents celebrating their child, a unified family, despite the complicated reality beneath the surface. Emma closed her eyes tight before blowing out her candles, her wish-making concentration intense and adorable. When she opened them, beaming with satisfaction at having extinguished all 6 flames with one breath, her gaze moved between Maya and Daniel with such naked hope that Maya felt her heart constrict. Whatever Emma had wished for, Maya suspected it involved permanence, a continuation of the family unit they had inadvertently created through what was supposed to be a temporary arrangement. The knowledge added poignancy to a moment already charged with emotion, knowing that the birthday celebration marked not just Emma turning 6, but the approaching conclusion of their agreement. As the party began winding down and guests departed with gift bags and tired smiles, Maya found herself drawn into conversation with various parents who clearly assumed she was Daniel's partner. She navigated these interactions carefully, neither confirming nor explicitly denying the assumption, aware of Evelyn's occasional observant glances from across the garden. By early evening, when the last guest had departed and staff were quietly dismantling decorations, exhaustion had caught up with Emma. She fell asleep on the sofa in the family room, surrounded by open presents, her head pillowed on Maya's lap, while Daniel sat beside them, his arms stretched along the back of the sofa in a posture of relaxed intimacy. It was Evelyn who found them this way, pausing in the doorway to observe the tableau before announcing her presence. "The 3 of you make quite the picture." Her tone was difficult to interpret, not entirely approving, but not condemning either. Daniel's arm withdrew from behind Maya, though he didn't move away completely. It was a good day. Emma's happier than I've seen her in a long time. Evelyn entered, fully settling into an armchair across from them. Thanks in large part to Maya's efforts. The acknowledgement came more easily than Maya would have expected, suggesting the day had shifted something in Evelyn's assessment of the situation. A comfortable silence settled between the three adults, the sleeping child between them, creating a momentary peace in what had been a tense household. Finally, Evelyn spoke again, her voice measured. "I've been thinking about what happens next." Her gaze moved between Daniel and Maya. "After today, after Maya's contract ends." The direct reference to their arrangement, something never previously acknowledged in Evelyn's presence, sent a jolt of surprise through Maya. Daniel sat straighter, wariness replacing his relaxed posture. "You know about our arrangement?" Evelyn's smile held no humor. "I've known something wasn't as it appeared since I arrived. After observing you all these weeks, the pieces fell into place." She looked directly at Maya. "You were hired to play a role to help Emma through her grief by providing a maternal presence, and perhaps to assist Daniel with his business connections who expect a traditional family man." The accuracy of her assessment was startling. Maya nodded slowly, seeing no point in denial when Evelyn had clearly pieced together the truth. "It began that way, yes, but it's evolved into something more genuine." Evelyn's observation wasn't a question but a statement of what she had witnessed. "Emma's attachment to you is real, as I suspect is Daniel's." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, neither confirming nor denying his mother-in-law's implication. "We've been discussing transition plans for after the birthday." Evelyn considered this, her gaze returning to her sleeping granddaughter. "And what has that discussion yielded?" The question hung in the air, highlighting the fact that despite weeks of acknowledging the need for such planning, they had reached no concrete conclusions about their future. The conversation had been repeatedly interrupted, postponed, or avoided, leaving them now at the precipice with no clear path forward. "It's complicated." Daniel's response was honest, but inadequate, earning a knowing look from his mother-in-law. "Life often is." Evelyn stood smoothing her impeccable slacks with practiced hands. "But complications don't excuse avoidance of necessary decisions. For Emma's sake, if nothing else, you both need to be clear about what happens next." She moved toward the door, pausing before exiting. "And perhaps for your own sakes as well." With that parting observation, she left them alone with the sleeping child and the weighty question that remained unanswered between them. What did happen next when the pretense was no longer necessary, but the feelings it had generated remained? Emma stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep, bringing both adults' attention back to the central figure in their complicated relationship. Daniel carefully lifted his daughter into his arms, cradling her against his chest with practiced tenderness. "I should get her to bed." His voice was soft, mindful of the sleeping child. "But we should talk after. Really talk. No more interruptions or postponements." Maya nodded, equally aware that they had reached a critical juncture. The birthday was over. The initial agreement had been fulfilled. Whatever came next would be based not on contract terms, but on choices made with full awareness of the emotional entanglements that had developed. As Daniel carried Emma upstairs, Maya remained on the sofa, surrounded by the remnants of celebration, discarded wrapping paper, new toys waiting to be properly placed, a forgotten party hat perched askew on a cushion. These physical artifacts of a perfect day stood in stark contrast to the uncertainty clouding the evening's conclusion. Their conversation, when it finally happened, would determine not just Maya's future, but Emma's emotional well-being and Daniel's ability to move forward from grief into whatever might come next. The weight of these considerations pressed against Maya's chest as she waited for Daniel to return, knowing that the next hour would likely change all their lives irrevocably.